You're listening to Parenting Our Future with certified parent coach Robin McMahon, author of The Yelling Cure and founder of Parenting for Connection. My podcast is all about providing you with the tools and solutions you need in your parenting so you can create the family you always wanted. Hey everybody, it's Robin here. Welcome back to Parenting Our Future. Okay guys, we're going to talk about money, but in a fun way. I promise. I have a super fun guest and you guys are just going to love his accent anyway. So I have Chris Farrell with me today. He is recognized and known as one of the most in-demand speakers in the world on the subject matter of business growth and marketing. Having spent the last decade helping adults achieve financial freedom, he has now turned his focus into the area that he feels has a much greater impact, and that is helping the next generation of kids and teens become smart with money. He has co-founded FUNancial and co-authored Rethink Money for children and teens. Chris and his team are now on a mission to reach 1 million young people in the next 2 years to help them deal with and talk about money. Welcome, Chris. I'm so happy to have you here.
What an introduction, Robin. I really appreciate those super nice words. Hi to everyone, all the listeners of Parenting Our Future podcast. I appreciate you, giving a bit of your time to listen to this guy with this English accent. So it's a treat to be here, Robin. Thank you for the invite.
Well, you are more than welcome, and I am so happy to talk about this. I haven't talked about this subject yet on this podcast, and we need to talk about money.
I have been stalking you online. I have been listening to some of your episodes. I thought, if I'm going to spend time with this young lady, I need to know some of her, what she's talked about. And you're right, I didn't hear anything about finance. I was thinking, this could be hopefully a fun conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, well, let's do it. Let's talk about money. Let's talk about let's just start at the beginning here, because all of my life, money has been taboo. We don't talk about money. I knew that when I was growing up, my parents struggled with money. I have carried over some baggage with money because of that. And so, not talking about money doesn't really work for us, does it? Because we're in more debt than I think any generation ever before, right?
Well, it's very open and vulnerable and honest of you to share that. And I think most listeners, and I include myself, can probably relate to that. In fact, I would expand that thought even a tiny bit further. I think there's two things that are not taught in schools. One is financial literacy. The second is mental health, which I'm equally as passionate about. And they're both, hugely important subject matters. Now, we're not particularly here to talk about mental health per se, although you could argue that that does spill into financial literacy as well. But why is, basic financial skills, even things like how to balance a checkbook, not that we really use checkbooks much these days, but these simple things are not taught in schools. Now, what happens as a result, as we become adults, we don't really feel that we're really that worthy to kind of be that knowledgeable about money, certainly not to educate our children on a subject matter that we feel we haven't got a grasp on. And so what happens? Well, nothing happens. And so the circle kind of completes. As we get older, we know that we should be talking to our kids, our teens about finance. We don't really feel that we've got the knowledge or the experience to talk about it. So we kind of brush it under the carpet. And that, as you correctly said, that, the stats alone, I mean, the amount of debt, I'm using American figures here, but it's generally really the same sort of worldwide. 95% of people are in some sort of debt or scarcity. 95% of people, Robin, when they go to a restaurant, first thing they look at is the price, and then they move left and they look at what the food can match the price. The first thing when they look at for a holiday is the price, and then they kind of go backwards and think, I could go to Spain, I could go to Paris for that. 95%. Now, it should not be the case, and the reason for that is we're simply not educated. All change starts with education, and that's really why we wanted to create financial freedom, to educate, as you correctly said, the next generation on how to become financially smart.
Wow, that's so true. So where do we start? How do we start?
Well,
can we go back in time?
Exactly. It'd be nice, wouldn't it? I've always enjoyed that expression. They said, when's the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And it's absolutely true. Yeah. And the funny thing that we've discovered about teaching financial skills to children is ironically, we didn't really, being totally transparent with you, sort of think about this. We're getting just as many messages from parents and adults that are enjoying what we're sharing, because I think all of us, I certainly include myself in this, we live in this society where we're bombarded with TikTok and Insta and Facebook, and everything is so fast, and none of us have got attention spans. So I think if somebody could let me zoom out a little bit. The basic law of any business is supply and demand. Any business that essentially supplies anything, whether it's a demand for, generally does quite well. And we have discovered that there is, if you like, a huge gap in the market for financial literacy explained simply. And so that's really what we wanted to do. And my business partner and I, when we set up the company, and there's about 20 of us now involved, we started off, as you very kindly said in your introduction, we started off teaching adults about business and entrepreneurship, and I still enjoy doing that. But it was at some of these events, and it was I can't take credit for this, Robin, at all. It was some of these events that parents would bring their kids because the babysitter fell through, for example. And it really was that thing that kids would sit there quietly looking quite bored at these old people on stage talking about stuff. And yet they would then implement some of the things that we were suggesting. And at one of our events in particular, a kid came up to us and we were talking about, it was actually affiliate marketing. And this child had done exactly what we suggested. He'd found a product. It was soap, would you believe? He'd created an affiliate link for some soap. And during lunch break, he tweeted it out to his followers, and he made $110 through affiliate commissions. Now, the point is, it's not really about the money, although of course that's nice. The point is the kid did something. And it was like, that's, for us, it was such an eye-opening moment. It's like all of us as adults, we've all got limiting beliefs. We all kind of, don't think we're good enough. We all suffer from some sort of imposter syndrome. And, that, again, that's another subject matter. But children and teens, they are more open to not having this resistance at first. So it kind of sorry, Robin, forgive me, this is a relatively long-winded way of me saying. So we decided to pivot and think, it would make more sense to teach financial literacy, to teach financial skills to the next generation, who, of course, let's be perfectly frank about it, also have the advantage of time on their side. So if you can sow some smart financial seeds at an early age, and I mean like in your 15, 16, 17 years old, even younger, gosh, by the time you're 30, you could be financially set up for life. And this is stuff that I wish that I'd done. I'm sure you're the same as well. But anyway, as we said earlier, the second best time to plant a tree is now. So we can still, as adults, we can still implement some of this stuff now. But really, that's kind of where the germ of the idea started, realizing that actually these financial education, if you like, if we can seed it, no pun intended, at an early age, then that will pay dividends for the children and the teens, 15, 20 years later.
Yeah, I think that's really important, especially now. Like when I look at teens now, and I have two teens, I have a 15-year-old and almost 13-year-old. And, one of the things so that I think of as a parent first is I see a lot of gaming first and foremost. And so these games are very diabolical, right? Because you can't play without putting money in. So this is something that comes up for us. And I know it may seem off topic, but it's not, because our kids don't really have a concept. My kids don't really have a concept of money and what it's like, they'll come up to me and they'll say, can I buy this thing for $3? I'm like, okay, well, is it just $3? Or, and then it turned out it's $3.95. Okay. Is it Canadian or is it American? It's American. Okay. So it's not $3 and it's not $4. It's actually more than that. So there's sort of this like whole concept that we didn't realize we were getting into when we allowed them something as sort of innocent. So we thought, as starting them on gaming. So I bring that up because I think this is so important, and teach me. How do I teach my kids now? I feel like it's okay. So if we can't go back in time to my 5-year-old self, then how do I go and talk to my kids now about it? What do I do now?
Well, wouldn't it be great if that essentially the same thing that they're playing that game on, let's use a phone as an example. Okay, it might be a PlayStation. Wouldn't it be great if they could then use that to generate a little bit of an extra income, maybe to not have to come to mum to ask for that $3 or $4? And
listening,
wouldn't that be amazing? So
yes.
one thing that have realized since we launched FUNancial, and this happened quite a lot when we were doing events before, of course, the whole world closed down. It was incredible to see teens. We put on quite lots of events around the world for teens. Teens would, if you like, I could see in the whites of their eyes their hunger to better their lives, to make a difference to their lives, to make a difference to their family. But they just didn't know exactly what to do. They knew that something could be done. So let's use this gaming as an example. One of the things that we teach is an introduction into making money. Now, the funny thing about making money, particularly at a young age, is obviously the pounds, the dollars, the euros in a bank account. Obviously that's a nice feeling, but I would argue what's even more important than that is that feeling of confidence that you allow a child or teen to experience firsthand when they have created something, often from their mobile device, that has generated them a little bit of extra income. That's why, although we're here talking about finance, and one of FUNancial's goals is to teach children and teens how to become financially smart, our overriding goal, our BHAG, as Jim Collins talks about in his book Good to Great, is to empower children and teens to lead extraordinary lives. Now, that starts with getting a grip on your finances. Why does it start with getting a grip on your finances? Because that's something that's tangible. You can see the results. But here's the thing, just to loop back to my earlier point, if you start to get a grip on your finances, and I'm sure many adults listening right now will feel the same, but if you start to get a grip on your finances, you're probably going to start to pay a bit more attention to your health. And if you start to pay a bit more attention to your health, you're probably going to start to pay a bit more attention to your relationships, and it has a real compounding effect. So to loop back to the beginning, we start with teaching children, teens how to become financially smart. So again, back to your two teens, what we would do in this case is we would introduce them, let's say, to maybe something such as e-commerce, the world of e-com. More and more people are making money using literally a mobile device. Look at the amount of apps that are out there, and you may have heard of these, you may not have heard of these, but there's apps such as Depop and Minted, and even Facebook Marketplace that we've all heard of. But there's many teens that we know that are making, might only be $100 a month, but what they're doing is they're looking at clothes. I'll use an example of clothes that are in their closet that they've either grown out of or they didn't even like, and rather than throwing them away like most of us did when we were kids, they're now taking a picture on their phone, uploading it to Depop or to Minted or to Vintage or these other sites as well. Macari is another site as well that does this, and then they're just seeing a sale coming through, and they might only make $40 or $80 a month. But what's happening here is suddenly, for the first time in their life, they've created this little, literally bedroom business selling stuff completely 100% online, completely using their mobile phone. You and I, when we were kids, we never even had this opportunity. We never had a window to the world with a device that is essentially with us 24/7. So my point for saying this is really what we're trying to do is we're trying to educate children and teens to start thinking differently. A lot of children and teens have probably never thought about, gosh, rather than asking mum for $3 or $4 for this computer game, I've got a pair of shoes that I haven't worn for 6 months in my closet that I could put online right now. Maybe in an hour of playing, they might have sold for $20. That is incredible, because the feeling, as I say, the feeling then of self-confidence and self-esteem, and that's really what excites us the most. That's why, as I mentioned, our goal with FUNancial is to empower children and teens to lead extraordinary lives. It's not based just on finance, but we start with finance to build the confidence to really essentially turn these wonderful human beings into, it sounds a bit cliche, but it's true, into the best versions of themselves. So in your case, that's what I would say. I would say, look, let's look at, rather than you sitting in your bedroom all day, let's work at leveraging your time and your expertise. And let's look around you. And all it requires, like anything in life, it just requires us thinking slightly differently about things. We all know that saying, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. So we really teach children and teens to start to look at things a little bit differently from maybe how they have before.
Wow, that's really cool. And you're so right. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, like, the world is changing and we can't just look at the world the way it was when we were teens, right? Because there are so many different opportunities. I mean, I think this is a phenomenal idea with e-commerce. Like that is just a phenomenal idea. I love it. And, as a parent, if you can be on board with that and say, hey, listen, you know what, I know that I bought you those shoes and, they're fine. But if you're not wearing them, then yeah, let's turn them into something, that tangible.
Oh gosh. And Robin, you just don't know that seed that you're going to sow as a parent.
Yeah.
You don't know where that will go. And that's why I say it's not really about the money. If you teach your child or teen, and it's really easy to set things up like this within 20 minutes. If they suddenly have this grasp that they did this themselves, then, I mean, let's continue with e-commerce. E-commerce itself is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. I mean, just look at the lockdown we've all had. The sales online have gone through the roof. More and more people are exploring having a side hustle, selling something online. E-commerce is not going away. Imagine being introduced to this world that didn't even exist really 15 years ago as a kid, as a teen, from something as simple as having an app which you can download for free on your phone, and everybody has a phone. So again, we're just really wanting to encourage children and teens to start thinking a little bit entrepreneurially, which is probably for many something they have not thought of before. They're all interested in making money and bettering themselves and looking after their family. They just need that guidance of, okay, we understand that, but that's the end goal. We can't start at the end. It's like we need the roadmap. We need the stepping stones. How are you going to get there? Well, here's how you're going to get there. Let's start with, as I say, in this case, an e-com business. And this is just one of the many things that we teach inside FUNancial.
Yeah. Well, and what I like about that too is that, that one transaction, if you will, of the shoes to the marketplace to money. I mean, what they're having to do is they're having to communicate. They're having to, to schedule their time because they're going to meet up with the person. They're going to, there's a lot of moving parts that are very mature. And I think are, one thing encourages many different skills that are real life skills, right? So this is really great. And we can be there to nurture them through it, to support them through it, to guide them through it. Because most of us have done, those kinds of things already on Marketplace or, all those other, apps and that sort of thing. So I love that. What about saving money?
So great question. So one thing that we teach, well, let me back up a little bit. One thing that we teach inside FUNancial is we have a thing that we call it our LEAP model, LEAP. And what we wanted to do is, well, let me back up even a little bit further. When it comes to the subject of money, it's such a vast subject matter. One thing about me, I suspect you might be similar, is I really like to keep things simple. I find it so easy in life. So many people can overcomplicate things, including businesses particularly. And it's very easy to do that. And it's people that overcomplicate things. Systems work. It's people that fail, often due to overcomplicating things. So when it comes to teaching finance, we want to keep it really simple. So we've created this simple process that we call the LEAP process. And LEAP, L-E-A-P, of course, stands for learn, earn, accelerate, and play. And this is me. I'm coming on to answer your question about savings. So within this structure of LEAP, when somebody logs into our members area, every month there's a new LEAP that's unlocked, and the L section stands for learn, teaches something about money. And our thinking is we want a child or a teen, when their head hits the pillow at night, to think, I didn't know that this morning about money. That's interesting. And it can be anything from such as how the banking system works, or how credit cards work, or what interest is, or what cryptocurrency is. A lot of things that most adults don't know, really. If you ask an adult to explain an interest rate, okay, sure, many may understand that. But things such as compounding, that's a perfect example of something that we've all heard about, but most people don't really know what compounding is. Now, Einstein called compounding the eighth wonder of the world. Warren Buffett, arguably the greatest investor ever, when he gets asked, which he gets asked often, what's your number one tip for growing wealth? He says, easy. My number one tip is tapping into the power of compounding. So again, compounding is one of these words, sounds a bit scary, sounds a bit dull, sounds a bit boring, don't really know what it means, and most people don't look at it. But if these super smart people have said that this is the one thing that they have used to catapult themselves to success financially, then shouldn't we at least explore this? So that's one of the many things that we explore inside the L section in LEAP. We want to teach children and teens something about money. So that's the learn section. Then we jump onto the E of LEAP, which is earn. And then every month we teach something that a child or teen can do from home to create some wealth, like e-commerce, like we just spoke about, or it could be, we pivot actually between on and offline businesses, because we appreciate not everybody might want an online business. Some might be a bit more old school, whether it's I don't know, a garage sale or a car wash for your neighbors or something like that. But we're just encouraging children and teens to start to think entrepreneurially. So just so we're clear, because I like to keep it really simple, we teach something about money. Once we've taught something about money, we then say, okay, now you've learned a little bit about compounding. Let's go and make you some money. That's in the earn section. Then we move on to the A of LEAP, L-E-A-P. The A, and this is me answering your question now, Robin.
No, it's
the
good.
A stands for,
it.
oh, thank you. The A stands for accelerate. And the accelerate means how to grow and scale your money. And this is, so we want to kind of go through a logical process. We want to learn about money, we want to make some money. Now, if you've got a tiny bit of coming in, even if it's $50 a month, which is fine, how do we grow and scale it? Well, we grow and scale it through saving and investing. One of the many things that we teach, and it almost sounds a bit blasphemous, because particularly some adults are thinking, what, you can't say that? But we teach that you're never going to earn your way to wealth. Now, that sounds a weird thing to say. It's like, surely it doesn't make any sense. But it's actually true. Now, I should just say, every rule has exceptions, of course. You know, there's always going to be exceptions in any rule. If you get a job and you stay in there for 50 years or 40 years and get to the very, very top and get paid, you know, $1 million a year or get shares, yes, sure, that will earn your way to wealth. But for most people, just having a job, doesn't matter how much you might like the job, that's not going to earn your way to wealth. You might be, you know, okay-ish, but the only way to really grow wealth is through savings and investing. So I'm ignoring things like winning money, marrying into money. By far, statistically talking, the most people that are financially independent have done it through simple savings and simple investings. And this is one thing that we are really big on teaching, that any time you make any money from word go, you've got to start saving. In fact, we immediately say, we want you to think of every dollar as 80 cents. For the rest of your life, because 20% of everything you make right from now, whether it's money you get from your aunt for Christmas or from your e-commerce business or even from your first job, every dollar is actually only 80 cents, because you're going to save 20% of it straight away. And we can talk about where we save and where we invest it. And that, if you do that at a young age, and particularly if you put it in a vehicle that pays compounding interest that we talked about earlier, just within 11, 12 years, that's going to make you very close to 7 figures, depending on how much you put away. So to answer your question, that's where the saving comes in. Everybody that is financially wealthy has learned to become a good saver. I want to say that again, because it's important. For anyone listening to Parenting Our Future right now, this podcast, anybody that's financially successful has learned to be a good saver. It doesn't matter how much, it's the habit of saving. And that's what we teach. At the end of every month, we want our child or teen to put away 20%. Anybody listening right now can do this. Just put away a fraction, and it doesn't matter the dollar. It's the habit of doing it every month, because those small incremental growth, baby steps, imperfect action, if they're invested in a compounding vehicle, can do well. Now we've got things such as cryptocurrency, which is so crazy and volatile and up and down. But even if you put a tiny amount of that 20%, we wouldn't recommend all of it by any means, but even if you diversify that 20% into crypto, I mean, that could blow up hugely in a few years. It may not. I personally think it will. But anyway, so that's where we teach about the importance of saving and investing. But we can't save and invest until we have some money to save and invest. So that's why we teach how to make money first before saving and investing. And that's all within the LEAP model, and the POF being somebody that helps others, tithe some of your money, and we can talk more about that later if you like. But that's essentially how we teach how to make, grow, scale, and give back money.
That's so nice. We used to have 3 little piggy banks for our kids when they got money.
Wow.
One was just to spend, save, and give.
I love that. But seriously, did you have that when you were a kid, out of interest?
No.
So you started, can you remember how old your kids were when you started that?
Right away, probably 3 years old. So
it was save, spend, and what was the other one, sorry?
Give.
Save, oh gosh. And
Yeah.
were you quite religious about, making sure
Yeah.
that,
And
and do you
so
think it's impacted them?
yeah, it was so sweet because my one son, he did a lemonade stand that he wanted to do for charity, and so we gave his money, the money from the lemonade stand, plus money that we had in his account, and we presented, I think, $250.
Oh my
We gave it to
goodness.
Ronald McDonald House, yeah, to help
Now,
other kids, yeah.
you
So
see, what I love about that, apart from obviously helping the charity, is you you cannot, no pun intended, put a value on how powerful that is for a 13 or 14-year-old. You
mhm,
just that's you don't know how your life is going to be pushed down a slightly different trajectory of that feeling of helping others and giving back. And I'm not
yeah,
saying that to say the right thing. You just, and imagine you do that, again, incremental growth. Imagine if everybody does that a little bit. You're going to change everybody's perception rather than living in a scarcity mindset and a me
yeah,
too mindset. If we
yeah.
start to think of, we actually encourage that 10% is given away as tithe completely. So essentially 90% of everything you make, you can then split up into different investments, but 10% you give off the top. Very similar, I suspect, to what you were doing. But
Exactly,
that
yeah.
changes everything. So I love the fact that you did
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it was really nice. And of course, we want our kids to have that instilled in them, kindness
Yeah.
and generosity and that sort of thing. But the one thing that you said that I think bears repeating as well is that your job, your income is not necessarily gonna give you that financial freedom later in life. I think
Mm,
that is the first thing we need to tell our kids. Like, I mean, you're the expert, not me, but that is, like, I was sitting here like mind blown, because that is so true, right? Because our salaries just get us
mm,
by, especially
yeah.
nowadays, right? They just get us by, and then it's the profit sharing or the stock options, or
Yeah.
whatever that are the company gives, that we're actually counting on for the future.
Absolutely.
So that is
It's
such a good point.
it's
Yes.
such a, and it really is almost a taboo thing to say. If you say this, particularly to maybe somebody of a certain age, let's say, if you say to them, you're not going to earn your way to wealth,
Yeah.
it can almost be quite insulting, because it's like, how dare you? I've worked hard. It's like, well, this is the reality. People are living longer. I mean, let's look at Social Security. Social Security was set up to look after people that were, 65 years and older. When it was set up just after it was in the Second World War, just after the Great Depression, the average age expectancy was 63. So it was set up, and they knew that most people wouldn't even live to actually want to use it. Now that's totally pivoted. Now somebody born today can expect to live to over 100 years old. The average age expectancy now in a married couple is 92 years old. We can easily have 30 years of retirement. You can easily be retired for maybe just as long as you were working. So is a system such as Social Security that was set up just to help the small amount of people that might live over 65, it's no longer going to work. So my point being, earning your way from a job to wealth is not the answer anymore. You have to think smarter. You have to have a side hustle. You have to be doing something else. Ideally, you have to have multiple streams of income, and that can be just from doing as simply as what we're talking about. Sure, get a job. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. We're not saying don't get a job, but don't stay in that job. Think about, eventually I might do a job for a few years, and then I'll set up my own job and have people working for me. So I'm becoming an employer rather than an employee. And then maybe move up the next level, which, could become, if you like, a director of a few businesses. Then maybe the next level, which is, if you like, an investor level, where you're investing in other businesses. And I think that wasn't taught when I was at school. I genuinely was from the kind of the generation of, get a good job, work hard, and get a pension sort of thing. Well,
Yeah.
how's that going for everybody these days? There's a
Yeah.
reason why 95% of America is in debt and scarcity, and it's because of that outdated. And things should change.
Yeah.
Millennials now would laugh at you if they said, I mean, statistically talking, I was reading this the other day. Did you know, Robin, you might find this fascinating, 1 in 2 people are going to be doing a different job in 2 years from now. 1 in 2. And I
Wow.
see this in Uber drivers. I jump into Ubers, and often I like chatting to them, and they say, yeah, 2 years ago I was an accountant, or 2 years ago I was a photographer. It's like everything is transitioning these days. They're even
Yeah.
saying something scary, like 40% of jobs when our children leave school right now, as you and I are talking, don't even exist. We don't even know
Exactly.
what they are. They'll be in blockchain or AI or stuff that we
Yeah,
can't even get our head around.
exactly.
So yeah, it's
So
crazy
that
times.
that
But
that means as parents, we have to remember that there are so many unknowns, and we can't just funnel our kids into what we were taught or
absolutely.
the world that
So
we live
say
in.
getting a job and staying in the job is such an outdated, and actually, let's be frank, doing a disservice to
Yeah,
children and teens if we
yeah.
say that that's what you should do because that's how it was in my day. Well,
Mm.
the only constant in life is death, taxes, and change, isn't it? So we need to embrace all of them.
Death and taxes. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is. So, what do you say? And I don't know if you say anything about this. I'm just going to throw you a curveball here. But what do you say about how materialistic we are? How you've got teens making money, but they want to spend $200 on a pair of shoes. Like, how do you reconcile those kinds of things? Like how brand
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how to say it, but you know what I mean.
No, I do know what you mean. It's a very big, we're almost kind of branching into the personal growth area, which is absolutely fine. So
True.
I'm absolutely so passionate about that. In fact, I think Jim Rohn said this back in the day. He said, "Work harder on yourself than on your business." And I've always thought that's a very
Mhm.
smart thing to say about life. One thing we try and instill is that social comparison is the thief of
Yeah.
happiness. That sounds a very kind of
Oh,
dramatic thing to say. I think Wayne Dyer said something like that originally. But we do teach that we are living in this world where everybody is comparing their life literally through filters as into other people's lives, and we really do teach that once we go down that path and we understand how easy it is to go down the path, that's a very slippery slope, because at the end of the day, what we should be doing, and we teach this in FUNancial, is it sounds again a little bit cliche, but the only competition really should be with ourselves. We should be asking ourselves, how have I grown today? How have I improved slightly today? And we encourage in our play section, particularly, we have templates that people can download and fill out. Again, when your head is on the pillow, and doing this as an adult is a great thing to do as well. In fact, I'd encourage everybody listening to Parenting Our Future right now, tonight, when you're in bed, just say to yourself, in all honesty, total brutal honesty,
hmm.
how have I improved today in some way, whether it's mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, relationship wise, contribution wise? And just ask yourself and be completely, brutal. And if you can't think of it, then you probably have not had some sort of tiny incremental growth that day. And that's okay, because it's good to acknowledge that, but let's not repeat that tomorrow. So really, to answer your question, we're teaching the importance of baby steps, of incremental growth, of imperfect action, of comparing yourself to how you were yesterday rather than versus anybody else. And I find when we start to think about that, the comparison trap of spending $200 on a pair of sneakers, or somebody dropping loads of stuff on YouTube, tends to disperse a little bit, because we tend to become more focused on understanding actually the real race is with myself and how I was yesterday and how I can become a slightly better person tomorrow than how I was today. Does that answer it?
Yeah,
Or
I think it does. Of course, I'm channeling my 15-year-old right now, thinking, how would he be about that? And yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because at the end of the day, let's break it down. You want to buy those shoes because maybe you want to impress someone. That person doesn't matter for your future, right? Like that's not the thing. That's not the thing that matters, right? It's look, you know what? There's nothing wrong with having those if you have your priority straight, don't you think?
I do.
Um,
I also would say it is quite like, that's a good example of the sneakers. It is also, I would say there's nothing wrong with having that goal of your 15-year-old wanting to buy the sneakers
mhm.
because he likes that girl or that guy.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
kind of having, yeah, exactly, having goals. Well, here's the thing: the only reason I hesitate at having goals is I've got this slight thing about goal setting, and there's nothing wrong with having goals, but I think the real secret is to actually have good habits, because goals themselves can actually cause a lot of stress. If you look at the Olympic athletes, they've all got the same goals to win the gold, but of course, not everybody does. So even losers, if you like, still had the same goal. So I think James Clear talks about this in Atomic Habits. He says that the key thing is that you don't want to rise to the level of your goals, but actually what you want to do is you want to rise to the level of your systems. Again, we're getting a little bit semantic-y here, but my point is, if you can come up with good daily systems rather than being goal-orientated, so rather than, for example, thinking, I don't know, I want to lose 10 pounds, it's a lot better to start I mean, that's fine to have as a goal because it steers you in the direction, but it's a lot more powerful to say to yourself, I just want to spend a bit of time investigating healthy diet and maybe learning a few more recipes that are going to increase my health, let's say. That's a better, because then you've got a system that can get you to the goal rather than just throwing out the goal. That's why often dream boards and vision boards, nothing wrong with those, but what often happens is you cause quite a lot of anxiety because people will have the house, have the income, have all this, and secretly kind of not feel that congruence that they can actually do it, but don't want to admit that because everybody else has these dream boards. But if you change that and focus on having a system to buy that house rather than the house itself, it's like, okay, I need to have a little business that makes me $3,000 a month. What could I learn that would allow me to do that? That, I think, is the key.
And that's the shift. That's the shift there. That's the shift.
I think it is. I really do. Again, that's goals steer you where you want to go, but if you just focus on goals, I think we just need to all come up with good systems and get really clear on what our
planning
system.
Yeah. That's really it's really good. I like that a lot. Okay, I'm gonna have to change some things once we're done here.
Don't get me wrong. I have goals as well, but just having a goal. It's like an endorphin hit. It makes us feel good. We've got that income goal. We see it on our vision board, and it kind of can fake us out. Now, if you've got a clear strategy how to get there, great. Then you have sort of got systems. Most people don't, though, and they'll get excited about, I want that 20 grand a month gig. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? I'm going to meditate about it and think about it. It's like, okay, I'm sorry, that's not going to work.
It's going to be
you
in
need
the
to go
moment.
back to school. Yeah, you need to learn some new. Who is it that said? I think it was Jim Rohn. Actually, it was Jim Rohn. He said the number one question he often got asked was how can somebody would ask him, how can I make more money? And he'd say, you make more money. In fact, it's a really great. I learned a lot from him. He said, you make more money by becoming more valuable. And I thought that's so simply and beautifully articulated. So therefore the question is, well, how do you become more valuable? And the answer to that is you become more valuable by learning new skills. So my point is, if somebody listening right now wants to make more money, let's say, and I know it's not all about money, but if that is the goal, how do we make more money? You make more money by learning new skills. So if you're not learning new skills, then you're essentially sort of going to stay at the same level because you're not becoming more valuable. He goes on to explain how a lot of people you often hear complain, like it's not fair that an NFL footballer gets 30 million a season, yet somebody working minimum wage at McDonald's gets, $13 an hour. It's like, well, hang on. Is it really not fair? Maybe it is fair because the value that the person working at McDonald's brings to the marketplace is very, very low. Nothing against them as a person, let me clarify. I'm sure they're a great person or a great husband or a great mother or father or son. Nothing against them personally. What I'm saying is the value they bring to the marketplace is low because anybody could do that. Whereas an NFL football player or a rock star, the value that they bring is high because they've got more skills. So therefore, if we want to make more money, we need to learn more skills is kind of my point. So I think I went off a bit of a tangent there.
No, I think that's a good point. Well, and as somebody who worked at McDonald's, met my husband at McDonald's, I definitely, I see what you mean. But also, the footballer you're talking about is not just playing the game. They're training, they're working, they're doing,
they're affecting the share price. They're affecting 20,000 people before lockdown coming to the stadium. And again, let me just clarify. I'm obviously not saying, I don't want anybody to think I'm saying anything's wrong about working at McDonald's. That's not what I'm saying.
You're not saying that.
I'm just saying the value that you bring to the marketplace in a job like that is low, as it is in anything where anybody could do. So, and that's just a fact. It's not a slur on anybody's character.
No. And let's be honest, you got to start somewhere, right? So
of course. Absolutely. So that's what we said earlier. Start there, but don't stop there. Start there, get a little bit of an extra income, start to save this 20% that we talked about, put it in a little investment of compounding thing. Doesn't matter how small it is. Get those habits that we've talked about. So now we're beginning to do what we talked about, little incremental growth every day. It doesn't matter how much you're doing. And then once you've had the job at McDonald's for a few years, you start thinking, maybe I could have my own little business doing something. And That's where it all
Yeah.
starts.
Yeah, I love it. I cannot wait to talk to my boys about this. I can't wait. I
What
can't.
are their
I'm
names?
serious. Parker and Aiden. So
Oh,
Parker's
great
my
names.
oldest. Aiden is the one who'll be 13 soon, and yeah, I could see them. I could see them doing it. My Aiden is an artist. He loves drawing anime. I could see him selling those drawings.
Oh,
I can see Parker selling all of our stuff. I mean, that's just
you
like
see,
his
I
room's
mean,
gonna be empty. My
I
room is gonna be
love that,
empty.
Robin. You see, the wonderful thing is now that there's the tools out there, like, Etsy, for example, particularly for
Yeah.
creatives like Aiden. I mean, Etsy is made for creatives, and so if he has some artwork, you take a picture. You simply put up the picture, put it on Etsy. I pretty much would guarantee he'd make some sales, and then suddenly,
Yeah.
then we're kind of learning about entrepreneurship and e-commerce, and he's tapping into creativity, and he's doing something he loves, and it's like, gosh. Then again, like we said at the beginning of this conversation, it's not really about the money anymore. It's about that increase in self-confidence and self-esteem that kind of
Yeah.
ensues as a result of implementing something new.
Well, kids too feel so powerless in their lives, right? They're told, what to do pretty much every moment of the day. So for them to
Yeah.
take to have some power in their own lives, I think that's, that makes sense to me that confidence would just grow. Makes
I love
total sense to
I
me.
love the
Yeah.
fact you said that. I did a talk recently just before lockdown in London, which is where I'm from. I've been living in LA for the last few years. And during the lunch break, I missed the lunch break because there was a line of teenagers wanting to speak to me. And the only reason I'm saying that is I could see in their eyes it was so beautiful, Robin. It was like, I don't even know how to articulate it. It was like this hunger that some I sense that they haven't even had any support. I mean, your children, Parker and Aidan, are obviously very lucky having you as a mum to support them. But I could see in these situations where I was talking that a lot of these teens didn't even have an outlet in their environment to kind of share these secret desires about bettering themselves. And you
Oh,
could see there was this fire that just needed to be stoked. So I
yeah.
agree with you. I think it is there in most people. Often it's just like all of us. We just need to be taken by the hand and mentored and kind of steered in the right direction. And particularly now with tools and technology that have really made the barrier to entry so low to do anything, that there really has never been a better time for a child or teen to explore, taking control of their financial destiny without putting too finer a point on it.
Yeah, you know what? I think what you've just shared, it has just really. I hope it's excited everybody that's listening, because I'm excited to
Oh,
look
thank
at
you.
this in such a different way. I love this, and you do have the financial freedom site, but you also have getfunbook.com forward
Yes.
slash podcast, which anybody can grab, and I'll put that in the show notes as well. Can you
Thank
tell
you.
me about that book
Of
and what's in
course.
there, and how it helps parents?
So essentially, when we started FUNancial, which was about 4 years ago now or so, we've got a few different ways of getting the message out. We have a charity arm. We have a book, and we have a membership site. So one of these things is the book. So myself, my business partner, we wrote a book called Rethink Money for children and teens. And it's quite unique because there's a lot of books, of course, on the subject matter of finance and aiming at finance for children and teens as well. But we read most of the books, and most of the books are aimed at the parents to convey that information to their child or teen. And before you and I actually jumped on this podcast, we were having another conversation about it's one thing to know something. It's another thing to be able to communicate that thing in an easy to understand manner. And we realized there wasn't really a book that communicated effectively to children and teens directly and spoke, in their language without patronizing them, obviously, or talking down to them, but just explaining simple money concepts, how to learn about money, how to earn money, how to grow and scale, and how to give back and impact others. So we've written a book that's a really fun, easy read. I mean, it's quite a robust book. It's still like 200 pages or something. But I'd be thrilled to give your listeners of Parenting Our Future a free copy. And you very kindly mentioned if you want to go to getfunbook.com forward slash podcast, you can grab a free copy there. And it explains the concepts of growing, making, saving, and investing, and learning all about money.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. That is so valuable. And just being here, I know that you have impacted some of the 1 million people that you are looking to impact as your
Robin.
goal, your mission. I think that is so great. You know what? And this will have a ripple effect through the generations as well. And that is part of real change. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for spending time with me today. This has been so great and so fun.
It's been such a treat speaking with you. It's gone so quickly. Thank you, Robin. Thank you to everyone at Parenting Our Future podcast listeners for, putting up with me. And I appreciate the invitation, Robin. Thank you ever so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this edition of my podcast, Parenting Our Future. I'm parent coach Robin McMahon, and if you're enjoying this podcast, please share it with someone who you think might also need to hear this message. And don't forget to subscribe, and if you like my work, I would be grateful if you gave me a 5-star rating. For those of you who like my content and want more, visit me at yellingcurebook.com to get your copy of my book and to find other resources to help you. Until next time, I am wishing you and your family peace and connection.